Welcome back to the Cannes Film Festival 2023 Parallel Challenge here on Fantasy Film Ball. We are your hosts, Matt and Arnaud.
That means we are watching an equivalent film to all 21 competition titles at Cannes this year. In this video, we'll be doing Amour Fou and Club Zero by Austrian director Jessica Hausner.
Jessica Hausner has been making films since the early 2000s. She first became noticed and renowned for her film Lovely Rita, which premiered in the Cannes Un Certain Regard sidebar in 2001. She's played in that sidebar twice again afterwards, and in 2019, she made her first English-language film, Little Joe, which landed her first Cannes competition selection and won the Best Actress prize for Emily Beecham. For our parallel challenge, we have selected Amour Fou, which played in the Un Certain Regard sidebar in 2014.
Amour Fou is a period piece that takes place in the early 19th century. It is inspired by the suicide of a poet, Heinrich von Kleist, who seeks a partner, not in life, but in death. He is trying to find a suicide partner. He stumbles on Henriette, who is a happily married woman with a child, and asks whether she would be interested. And when Henriette learns she has a slow terminal illness, she becomes more interested in the proposition.
I'd previously seen Jessica Hausner's film Little Joe, and you could say that I was less than impressed by that film. So I didn't come into this with very high expectations, but I really loved this film. I thought it was very darkly funny, actually, when like the first 30 minutes of the film is just Heinrich going from person to person being like, hey, I love you, would you like to kill yourself with me? Kinda darkly hilarious. The thing that I loved the most about this film is the Barry Lyndon-esque quality to the framing and the design of this film. Every single frame felt delicately composed to look as though it could be a painting. It's just a formidable looking film.
This is a really, really impressive achievement on an aesthetic and technical side. This is also an incredible depiction of the early 19th century, in my view. The best depictions of certain eras to me are not the biopics necessarily. They're not the big stories where we see the kings and queens and their political decision. Sometimes it's just the small stories about what it's like to actually live in that era. In this case, what's the pace of life? What are the routines? What are the social structures? And in this case in particular, the lack of advancements in the medicine, the medical field, and the mental health field. She's also really great in choosing her decors and colors, like you said. The sets really makes you feel like you're inside a maquette of sorts, and it fits very well with the story, and there's a very confident style going on here.
To be clear, despite the fact that I didn't like Little Joe, the strength of that film too was also the production design. That is a gorgeous looking film in the design of these flowers, of these greenhouses, but in here I think that the design meshes with the script better, because the script here is really, really good. The dialogue is very strong, it's very funny, it's very dark, and in both this and Little Joe, there's a deadpan stoicism to the dialogue, the themes of depression, the kind of oppressive quality, like you mentioned, the pace of life that they're feeling is just so slow, as though they're on this monotonous march towards death. I think that the writing is perfect for that feeling here.
Hausner directs stoicism incredibly well here, and it's not just because she knows how to direct her actors so that they are stoic. They're not always stoic. They can express emotion, but sometimes you feel like they are in their shell, but you kind of feel the energy kind of try to come out of them regardless. Reminds me a lot of Lanthimos or Haneke's work, for example. To me, this film gets really progressively more suspenseful as you see this plan come more and more into fruition. I thought this really tackled suicide in a really frank and nuanced way, especially when put in the context of the era.
I kind of felt differently about how it goes on. I found that the beginning captivated me much more than the end. The proposition of the premise at the very beginning was fascinating, funny, sad. Once we understood the concept that Heinrich was looking for a death partner, someone that he could fall in love with and die together with, it felt like he started to repeat himself, as though every time we see him, we're kind of getting the same thing. Now, his desperation increases as the story goes along, but I did feel like it got a little bit repetitive at times. It didn't detract too much from the film for me, but I did find the beginning to be much stronger than the end because of that repetition. Now, I do think this is a very respectful and very nuanced approach to this topic, especially in an era with zero respect for mental health. It really dismantles that tortured genius myth.
Yeah, I didn't expect to love it as much as I did. A saying we often say when we watch a film that's interesting to us is that, oh, I can't wait to see what he or she does next. So here I'll try to reword it a little bit, and I'll say that I think that Jessica Hausner is a major filmmaker who I think is inching towards a masterpiece. Maybe that masterpiece will be Club Zero. We'll see. Also, interesting note I want to point out is that two of the stars of this film, they're not the two leads, but two of the stars in this film, Christian Friedel and Sandra Hüller, is the same duo that we'll be seeing later this year in The Zone of Interest.
I haven't seen Christian Friedel in anything for like 10 years now. I don't remember a whole lot about The White Ribbon, so I can't speak about that, but I'm fascinated by his screen quality in this, and I can't wait to see what he does in The Zone of Interest. He has such a innocent, boyish quality to him, so I can't really imagine him playing a genuinely menacing Nazi camp commandant in The Zone of Interest, but that's why I can't wait to see what he does with this performance. I'm sure it'll be incredible.
So let's talk about Club Zero, which, like you said, it's Hausner's second English language film. It seems like she's going to settle for making English language films. This time, she is working with Mia Wasikowska, who plays a teacher who starts an after-school club with a very unconventional way of going about zero carbon emissions. Hausner seems to love combining these kind of taboo topics with a sort of dreadful horror undercurrent. Not in so much as there is gore, but so much as, you know, it's kind of situational horror.
The vibe I get from a lot of Hausner's work so far is that sometimes it feels as though she's trying to be Yorgos Lanthimos 2.0. I don't mean that in a derogatory way or a negative way. I just mean that her work seems to align with that Greek weird wave style of filmmaking, the same kind of very deadpan approach to very taboo topics.
Honestly, I can see this being a major breakthrough for her. I think this will be the film that finally gets her on the world stage that she's been really begging to be on. I can see this getting a screenplay or even, dare I say, directing prize. I would bet more on the screenplay. I think the high concept nature of the piece will please the jury on a screenwriting level a little bit more.
You were right about Anatomy of a Fall, so I'm not going to contradict you here. I said that film was going to be forgettable and nothing, and you said it could be a major surprise, major breakout. It was. I'm not going to say a whole lot about Club Zero. I know I liked Amour Fou, so I hope that this film is much better than Little Joe. But competition is so fierce this year that even if the film is amazing, it could still be left out. But that said, it does seem particularly friendly to Ruben Östlund. This is a film that tackles social issues in a very unconventional, taboo way, right? We're looking at global warming and the climate crisis through a bunch of people doing something that is very radical and maybe not very societally acceptable in a comedic, off-kilter kind of way. That seems very Ruben Östlund, and he might be kicking himself that he didn't come up with this idea first. I'm not going to predict it for any prize, but if it does win a prize, I would say screenplay is most likely.
Keep in mind that Little Joe wasn't all that well received when it came out, but it still managed to garner a Best Actress prize. So maybe, you know, we don't have too much experience with Hausner on the jury, but maybe she just has a certain style that is very jury friendly and that these kind of filmmakers just kind of fall in love with, and this is her chance to win an even bigger prize.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Cannes Parallel Challenge. Make sure that you subscribe so that you can stay up to date with all of our Cannes Film Festival content. We're going to be posting every single day all the way until the awards ceremony, at which point we're going to be revealing what our Palme d'Or will be. So thank you so much for joining us today.